Welcome, one and all, to Creative Spark, my interview show where I talk to cool people about the cool things that they do. With me today is none other than the charity consultant and champion, streamer, content creation extraordinaire, and endgame boss, Hannah Rutherford.
Hi,
Hello.
hello.
How's it going?
Okay.
Wonderful.
That was a nice intro, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know what I'm the end boss of, but
I
I'll
don't know.
take it. Not of Elden Ring,
I
that's
don't
for
know.
sure.
I don't need to specify that. It's just I can make stuff. I can make stuff.
Yeah,
Just whatever.
yeah, yeah. No, I'm doing good. I'm plodding along, the usual content plodding along situation.
As we are wont to do.
Yes.
Um, I think the most interesting point to start with a lot of people is how they got their streaming tag, as it were. So, would you mind explaining Lomadaya, if
Oh
I
God.
pronounced that
Okay.
correctly?
Okay. So we need to go back
I don't know.
like sometime. We need
Sometime.
to go back to the God, is it early noughties? I think it's the early noughties when a certain trilogy of films came out by an up and coming director called Peter Jackson, uh, and Lord of the Rings films. So they were
They're quite
everywhere.
indie. You can Google
Yeah,
them.
very indie. Yeah, it's just you might have heard of them. I just some small projects, and so like obviously everyone was into the Lord of the Rings, right? There, you've got the live journal stuff, you've got the like forum post, like people are just it's all over the place. Um, and I think I needed to make a username for something. I don't think it was World of Warcraft quite then,
Right.
but that sort of solidified it because I played a night elf. So it's like, right. I got hold of an Elvish translator. And I put in not Hannah, because it couldn't do that, but I put in Hannah is Hebrew for graceful, which is hilarious if you know me. Like, I don't think that there was any insight from my parents. Grace, like, it no way manifests in my soul. But I was like, oh, I'll put that into the Elvish translator, graceful. Lamadia came out. Now, I stuck a H at the end because in various places the account like I can't take it because it doesn't someone else has
Yep.
already got it, so depending on where I am there's a H or there isn't a H at the end. And yeah, so that's what I went with, and it wasn't until much later on when the Lord of the Rings had been out for a lot longer, we had a lot more people, the internet was much more built up. We had a lot more people who were a bit more savvy with the Elvish language, that I discovered that that entire thing was nonsense and was not a correct translation. So that's how I am stuck with a name that is technically not Elvish, but I thought was Elvish at the time.
It could be your version of Elvish.
Yeah, sure.
It could be
This
great.
Tolkien's just going to resurrect, be like, "Excuse me, you dealing with like what are you doing with my language?"
This is where I draw the line.
I'm a language professor. I built all these languages. You come in here, you make your own up now. So yeah, basically an early 2000s Elvish translator tool on a website. That's me.
Oh, that's an excellent origin story for a name. Uh,
It's like, when someone goes in, they're like, I want to have some like a Chinese tattoo, and they think
yes,
it
yes,
means this, and it actually means like sweet and sour chicken. It's that sort of level of like, I fluffed it,
yeah. Fully messed
except
it
at
up.
least it's not tattooed, and also
Yes,
it's Elvish as opposed to an existing language
yes,
and culture.
yes.
Um,
Which is better,
it,
objectively.
it is better, but a part of me, I don't even know actually what it should be in either. Actually, there might be 3 or 4 Elvish languages, but it's incorrect in all of them.
Just don't look it up, and then you won't know. And I think that's the
True,
best way.
true,
It's like
exactly.
Schrodinger's Elven word for graceful. As long as you never know what the correct one is, maybe it is the correct one by accident.
Yeah, sure. Let's
Um,
go with that.
so at what point did you start? We'll focus on streaming first. At what point did
Yep.
you start streaming then?
Oh Lord. Okay. So, I had already been doing YouTube
Mhm.
since because there was a point at which I was doing some editing
Mhm.
and not making videos, and then I swapped doing that. It was it was about the time that I was still at uni. I was coming out of university. I came out into the economic crash, right? Just
Classic.
lovely.
We've all been there.
Um, absolutely stunning. So content creation was kind of something to do in the meantime, which then evolved into being the full-time job. And I think I swapped to streaming because YouTube wasn't quite working for me after a long period of time. It was like the algorithm had changed to move away from long form let's plays and that sort of stuff. So I think I started doing stuff on Twitch like properly in about maybe 2016, somewhere around there. Somewhere around there is when I started doing more full-time streaming and starting to shift away from YouTube. So God, that's like 8 years.
Life comes at you fast.
I know. 8 out of like 15 years of content creation. It's just ridiculous. But yeah, so that's kind of where Twitch started. It was mostly a movement because it made kind of more sense as well. Like there's something I find much more wholesome about having a live chat and a back and forth. So just enjoyed it and sort of stayed. So like now I'm still on Twitch. And have kind of just not really done anything involving YouTube for some time, mostly because just the additional admin, to be honest. Yeah. So at some point I might go back, but I think it's more a case of I'd probably do the stream, the multi-stream setup as opposed to curated, edited content because time and all of that. Just for me, it doesn't work at the moment. But yeah, so like I've been doing Twitch for 8 years, which is ridiculous. Time has flown.
What were your streams like when you were starting out, and at what point did you realize that it was turning into like a full-time job?
Well, so because of the YouTube side, and I was in a network, so there was a bit of a like nepo baby partner situation. I'm not gonna lie. It was a lot easier. And what I will say is I was not one of that group. Like there's been various networks, should we say, like who sort of situations at both at YouTube and at Twitch for many, many years, like special deals, partners, etc. And like Twitch is making a move to be a bit more transparent, bringing in stuff like the Plus program, which unlocks better rates of pay the more subscribers you have, and they're relatively accessible for affiliates as well. Like it's not a really high like number. You do stuff to work on it, but so I sort of came into this already from a space of having an audience, and therefore kind of automatically qualifying for a lot of the like partner application stuff.
Okay.
So a little bit different to what a lot of people would experience, for sure, because there were people who were coming over from videos. I will say I'm still getting people coming over from YouTube because it's taken them 8 years to realize that I'm over there because of how bad the contact system is for people who follow your channel. But that's a different matter. So yeah, like that sort of movement went over. Definitely a smaller audience base because obviously it's live content. It's a lot harder to access like the pre-recorded if you do like your VOD curation and so forth, which I do try and do so that people have playlists, so they can go through all the Dragon Ages or whatever it is we're doing. So yeah, it's one of those things where it's like I did sort of more walk into it than a lot of people would do. But it's definitely been a learning process, and there were very different bits of it. Obviously, you've got live alerts, you're interacting with the chat, you're playing the game live, you're trying to balance potentially disruptions from everything.
Yep.
Like someone does, I this is something at the moment I'm trying to work out sound alerts and stuff and put them in because I need to redo everything for Halloween because that's coming up. So I'm like, right, well, we'll do some channel point redemption sound alert stuff. But then it's like, what do we pick for that? What do we pick for like general alerts? Because we don't want anything too disruptive. So it's things like that. It's just finding those like weird little balances that were a little bit tricky. I will say as well, in some cases, it's sometimes harder to do things like sponsorships. It's gotten a lot better, but it is still something where, because it's live content, they don't necessarily value it as highly as a video, because
Right.
it's a lot easier to look at a video and go, oh, it got this many views, which, like, frankly, brands need to stop doing. KPM and stuff is terrible anyway. It just, don't give a streamer 10 grand for Dragon's Dogma 2 when you could give that to 10 streamers and you'll probably get a higher engagement, right? Like, it's that sort of thing. That sort of thing, which sometimes can be a little bit of a nightmare just across content creation. But in terms of like enjoyment factor, it's been a lot better. We do lots of different things. They get to like not bully me. That's a bit much, but they get to, we actually get to have back and forth. We get to have communication. They get to like backseat in certain games if I'm being inept, which is most of them. Horror games, we get to experience that as a group, as opposed to me filming it on my own, just going, then editing it, and then them, watching in isolation. So no, it was definitely a learning experience. I do think despite it being live and therefore potentially being more stressful, I do think I enjoy it more. But maybe that's because of the 7+ years of editing that I did before that.
Yes.
Which was like daily videos, sometimes twice a day. So like when the Telltale Walking Dead games came out, it was just like I need to like film it and put all of that out basically within 2 days, or I've missed the mark. And it's like, yeah. So yeah, it was just that was basically burnout upon burnout upon burnout, I think, like in hindsight. And yeah, so like that sort of stuff has kind of fallen a little bit more by the wayside. It's a bit more chill, effectively. I do like doing a bit of editing, but it's one of those things of like, and this is why I don't necessarily want to cross back into doing YouTube curated content, is like affording an editor, like a good editor, and paying an editor fairly. Ain't got the money for that. Like it's an investment, right? And then you have to find someone, you have to teach them your style unless they know it. But it's just, yeah, I like doing a bit of editing, but for fun. And I worry that if I go back into trying to do YouTube content, that will kind of suck the life out of it again, if that makes sense. That
is fair.
But now multi-streams are allowed. There might be the possibility of just, toggling it on YouTube a little bit, going on both, something like that, just to see what test the water, I suppose, on YouTube.
Do you think that multi-streaming adds like an extra layer of stress to it, knowing that you're on more than one platform?
Yeah, probably. I think it depends on how you do it. So like, I've got a couple of friends who've started doing it, and I don't know how much they acknowledge YouTube.
Right.
I don't know whether they just have or like TikTok. Some people do it on TikTok, and it's like, I'm on TikTok, but actually I'm also come in and say hi. I think TikTok, has some like terms of service on stuff where you're not necessarily allowed to cross promote where you're streaming.
Okay.
But I think that there are potentially workarounds to that.
Yeah.
Same as I think you're not allowed to necessarily show, or you couldn't show like YouTube chat, for example, on a Twitch stream. There was some weird little intricacies between all the platforms where none of them wanted to play nicely. So it is a potential thing. I know some friends who do it, and yeah, some who actively will be like, oh, YouTube chat says this, Twitch chat says this, and some who only acknowledge Twitch chat, and just the rest, it's more of a output, come in and say hi. So, and there's a couple of like additional plugins and things nowadays that are slowly being made that facilitate that a lot more. So yeah, I think at some point I might have a dabble. I was offered a TikTok live streaming offer, because you could apply for them and you would be offered various different packages. The problem with the package that they offered me was, oh, you've got the next 7 days to stream. And I was like, well, I'm not actually here. I'm at TwitchCon. I've just applied for this. There are packages that do like 2 months, forever, indefinitely. Why have you only given me a 7-day one that I can't actually do anything with? Absolutely wild, strange. But yeah, so I might dabble in multi-streaming at some point. it's just working out how exactly that all fits in together, what service to use, and then how would I do it? Because I think I would end up acknowledging all the chats.
Yes. Would you have to like beep that out on Twitch? You're like whispering it almost like YouTube said this thing, and then like, oh, TikTok is talking about. I don't know how the.
I don't know, because I watch, for example, I watch like Doug, who actively has streams where he makes YouTube chat fight Twitch chat in like Mario Party, and then he's in it, and then there's an AI, and it's like that works really well. It's like you're all involved, you are all on the screen. It's just how exactly if we're going to do that, and I currently don't have chat on the screen. Just because I've been on as part of the Women's Guild, you get occasionally rotated onto the front page. So like June was my month.
Right.
So I was like, right, we're not doing anything that's gonna potentially, so like follow alerts off.
Yeah.
Like anything like that where it's like someone could be a bit dodgy.
Yeah.
No, thank you. So things like chat messages, I've until recently not had on the screen. But because we have really good tools, the auto mod is a little bit hit and miss. It tries, bless it, it does try. But it does also think that if someone says ginger, it will flag that repeatedly. And I do get why. But if someone is ginger and they're saying they're ginger, please. Or they're talking about the spice ginger as well, right? It's just like, oh God. But like we've got things like the auto mod, which catches a lot of things. We've got Seribot as well, who actively will catch various things like view bots and those like the ones that selling ads. So I think we're in a different scenario than we probably were a couple of years ago, where it probably is a little bit safer for me to have something like chat on the screen, because it's not for me, it's for everyone in the chat. It's for people watching the VODs. I don't want someone to turn up and they see something that's like derogatory language that's aimed at them.
Yes, of course.
And like I'm relatively lucky. Like obviously I do experience some misogyny, but I'm not the main target of a lot of the harassment that happens, because I am not part of the LGBTQ community. I'm not part of the Black community. So I've dodged quite a lot of it as well, I think, like in some cases. When we had the hate raids a couple of years ago, that sort of thing. It's like I had friends adjacent to me who literally were on streams with me who were getting harassment and stuff like that. So yeah, we are slowly improving. Like I think it's in terms of all the platforms, I think it's the one that is making it okay. They're not perfect steps, but they are slow steps in the right direction to ideally make it a better place for that. So yeah, like chat messages possibly coming on the screen, we'll say.
Cool. But you are a Twitch ambassador.
Yes.
What is a Twitch ambassador?
Okay, so hashtag bleed purple or whatever it is. So basically we are supposed to be it's sort of changed a little bit over the years because obviously Twitch has evolved. And the earlier programs for Twitch ambassadors, it was more of a like, this person does stuff on the platform that we like to see, keep it up, or advocates for change, whether it's on the platform within certain communities, whatever it is. So that, God, was that 2019? Might have been. Was it 2020? I can tell you it was the year the pandemic started because I was going to be invited, all expenses paid, to TwitchCon that year.
Right.
Because if you're the first year, you get some special bonuses, right? Because hey, Twitch ambassador, thank you for your service to the platform. We're going to pay to send you to TwitchCon. Beautiful, thanks. Then there was a pandemic. No TwitchCon. No TwitchCon. So everyone for that specific group just sort of got put straight into Twitch ambassador, as opposed to you go TwitchCon ambassador then So instead of a little trip, we got like a little care package of things, which I think included like a Nintendo Switch, which is very
Oh,
sweet. But I already had one, so we gave it away in like a charity thing at some point.
makes sense.
But I've got like a nice like little blanket thing that's got my username on. But just some little bits and bobs that would, make your streaming life better, like a giant mouse mat for your
Yep.
keyboard, that sort of thing. Um, so yeah, the idea is that it's people on the platform who advocate for improving it, basically. And we continue to do that. If anything, since the pandemic, since some of the internal changes at Twitch, there's been a shift in the ambassador program. There's a lot more concentration on doing stuff with it, whether that is, us potentially organizing things for certain months, or submitting panels, those sort of things. Like, I'm trying to be as vague as I can, because whilst there isn't an NDA,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's certain things where it's like, it's not my information to share. But the gist is that they are trying to keep the program. They're trying to make the platform, sorry, the platform. They're trying to make the program more integrated with the platform, so that like we can, we can provide feedback on certain things maybe before it goes to the general public.
Right.
We can bring concerns that our communities have. So like the new mobile app came out and it's not gone very well. No one likes it because it's gone very TikTok,
Right.
Instagram Reels, and for some people perfect, lovely, but for a lot of other people confusing.
Yeah.
Like they're trying to find the people that they follow, and it's more interested in going, oh, discovery, let me show you new people. Really what they needed, and again, I was not asked beforehand, but what they needed is just like a toggle in one corner where you can go, can I have the TikTok feed?
Yeah.
Go full, like, show me everything, like
Yeah.
just anything and everything, and then can I just have my stuff? And it probably is in there somewhere, but people are struggling to find it. So that's kind of what we do. A lot of people seem to think that Twitch ambassadors will just be there to be like, yeah, Twitch is so good. No. If they mess up, we tell them, like, and we publicly as well, we have collectively voiced opinions. Like, that is the point of us. If we weren't there to advocate for communities, which is why we were in that position, then it's kind of a non-plus, a non-starter. So yeah, like it's quite sweet of them to ask me. I'm also in the Women's Guild on Twitch, as a very part-time, mostly because the guild is in America. So time zones, it's not always perfect, but I am there, like an events and planning mentor. So there's a couple of different mentors in the guild who do, there's like community mentors, there's tech mentors, and then the events and planning one will include stuff like charity streams, but also anniversary streams. Oh, I'm doing a front page, like, can someone check my application? So like we're sort of there if people need us. At the moment, less so. They're all doing quite well.
Well, that's good.
But it's good. They can open a little ticket, give us a little shout, and things like that. So that kind of like all ties in together as occasional mentoring is a very strong word. That's not what's happening. At least for me, I just sort of bumble in and go, "Oh, this looks great. Have you done this? Bye."
It's just
Bye.
floating off into the distance.
Yeah. But no, so that's been since what's 2019.
Okay.
Oh god, 5 years of Twitch ambassador.
This whole video so far has just been you having an existential crisis
Yeah,
about the passage
about
of time.
yeah.
That's not what I was aiming for, but
My chat do it to me regularly because they don't. Some of them, we have a complete range of age, and also like if you look into the analytics of platforms, the largest demographic of both creators and viewers is millennials. The Gen Zs, they're all over on TikTok.
Yep.
Like they're not on the other platforms. There are more boomers than there are Gen Z, by like 2 or 3%.
kind of wild.
It is, isn't it? Because obviously all these companies are like, oh yeah, the 18-year-olds. It's like, no, they're not here.
They're on TikTok.
They're not here. They've gone somewhere else. Yeah. Like you're trying to sell me something. You're trying to sell me a product or a game that's aimed at the wrong demographic, folks. What are you doing? But as a result of that, we have a relatively diverse age range. I would say skewing towards millennials in my community. Every now and then someone will say something and the rest of us will just be like, what is that? What is this save icon? It's a floppy disk. It's just like, like I can't. Or I'll just because of the ADHD, I've got the echolalia. So sometimes I'll hear something and it will be in there. Or like the other day, yesterday, I was on a Magic stream with a group of people.
Mm-hmm.
And 3 of us out of the 4 knew this specific 90s noughties club song,
right.
like the There's No Limit, that one, right? This person didn't. So I was like, right, it's this. Just really quickly went, no. And they went, oh yeah, I know this. But the only reason I know this is because that's what you stim in horror games when you're running away from people. And I'm like, that's okay. Fine. So yeah, there's moments where I'll do something or say something and someone's like, what's that? What's Spice Girls? And I'm like, I can't talk. Or Backstreet Boys, like Deadpool with the dance. The dance, and it's just like, oh god. I remember it the first time round, and they're like, this is so new, and I love this dance. It's so catchy and new and wonderful. I'm like, oh,
you weren't there.
Bless you, but no. Yeah.
Aging is weird. Time is weird.
Yeah, it is. And because I've basically not aged for 10 years, I just look like a weird androgynous witch woman who's not quite grown into her nose. They don't know how old I am half the time. So when I'm like, I'm 36, they're like, what? I thought you were 24. And I'm like, how do I've been
36.
making content. Oh, congrats.
Thank you. I have a similar aging thing where I feel like I stopped aging about 10 years ago. Although I have noticed it recently, but I think it's just pure exhaustion, just dragging my face off my face.
Yeah, no, I feel that. It's weird because they assume that you're maybe mid-20s, and then you're like, no, add a decade, and they're like, what? I didn't know you were so old. And then someone else in chat's like, I'm 55, and I'm like, I've done it again. We've had a fight. It's a mild. Everyone's just either going, oh, I'm so young, or people are just disintegrating.
That is what happens.
Yeah. It's wild. It's fun. I had to explain to them who Peter Molyneux was the other day, which was another fun adventure. Just stuff like that, where it's retro games as well. What is Dungeon Keeper? Oh, this thing. Why is it like this? I'm like, it's from 1993. Go away.
We've been gaming for a long time, all right? It wasn't always good out there.
or how do you Tomb Raider? Because the first 3 got remastered. Love it. Thank you. Yes, I'm hoping we get 4, 5, and 6, but considering that's when the studio stopped wanting to do them, we'll see if 4, 5, and 6 do get some love. And yeah, not playing with modern controls can't do that. It's weird. It doesn't work in my brain. So tank controls, and they're like, how do you do tank controls? It's so finicky and fiddly. I'm like, 1996. I was playing this when I was under 10 years old. Not a problem.
There were times when we played first-person shooters without analog sticks, and I don't think anything is more indicative of how we have suffered as millennial gamers than that.
Oh god, yeah. I mean, I first-person shooters, mouse and keyboard, because I didn't have a console.
I only got a PC fairly recently in my adult life, so I was using D-pads and stuff to control, and
it's done me really well up until the point where content creation, they were like, oh, we'll send you a code for PS4 or Xbox. I'm like, oh no. Sorry. So I can't remember which one it was. It was one of the Wolfenstein games. Initially, they were like, oh, we'll send you a code on Xbox. I was like, no, you are gonna literally, it's just gonna be me going I can't aim them. Third person, fine. Lock on, fine. Because I played Prince of Persia, Sands of Time, and all of that. that would have been with a controller on my computer. But for first-person shooter style stuff, if there isn't a mouse and keyboard, it's like chat are surprised when I get a mouse and keyboard for those kind of games. Like, even stuff like Resident Evil, noticeably, they're like, "Oh, you're quite competent." I wouldn't go against players. Can't play against other players. I'm not that quick. But there's like me as Leon in Resident Evil 4 getting headshots, and they're like, "What is this?"
Like, I know how to play games.
Yeah, I can do this. I just do not have the necessary tools sometimes. So yeah, to be fair, I do like all the games, most of the games.
It helps to like games, I think, if you're streaming.
Yes, it would be helpful, wouldn't it?
Let's briefly move away from streaming to your charity consultation and work. How did you get into that? What kind of stuff do you do?
Okay, so the gist of it is, it's at the heart of it like a plan B, right? Because like, content creation, it ain't doing so good. The fact the gaming industry has had massive layoffs, like record breaking as well, does not help, because obviously the knock-on effect, cost of living crisis, when you're relying on an audience for money or you're relying on advertisers for money, and both of those are like not great, you have to look somewhere else. This did not mean I was like, all right, charities, pay me money, thanks. But I was very conscious that I had spent almost the entirety of my content creation times fundraising in various capacities, either in big groups, where I quite often was bringing in some reasonable amounts for my allotted stuff that I was doing, or individual fundraisers. I know people on various fundraising platforms. I'm friends with people in different charities. So it's like that kind of stuff is like already there. And so as a result, it was almost like, this makes a lot of sense for me to move adjacently into. Like a lot of people, when I was voicing this idea, were like, no, I think you'd be really good for that. Because we do need more people in the space who are talking sensibly. One of the main things that kind of kickstarted this was the whole soft giving, brandfluence shenanigans that happened. To really briefly summarize them for folks, an agency that's quite focused on setting up charity campaigns and being a middle person between streamers and charities, however, lying to every single person involved, including the staff, about how much money they were taking. And also getting encouraging streamers to do quite questionable behaviors, such as giveaways without appropriate legal disclosure, which can cause, streamers can be fined for that. You can go on a little watch list that's like, these are naughty people. So like stuff that was actually really not great. Multiple, probably over the space of like 2 years, they were fed back this information by various streamers, never changed. And then it kind of all went a little bit pear-shaped for them because someone started leaking contracts or something. And then we discovered how bad it was, like to the extent that the staff themselves within the business did not know what was happening. And that annoyed me, because this is that on its own horrible, but then you're going and talking with charities and you're taking money from them. Like, that's really sketchy. And they are still around. They rebranded themselves to Brandfluence. So I'm hoping that they've gone, because they were clocked quite early in this name change, and a lot of people were like, no, don't come back, this is not your space. But they also tried to, and I don't know the state of this, they tried to do a lawsuit for slander against the CEO of Tiltify, who's another major fundraising platform, because apparently him saying that they were terrible or whatever it was caused their business to fail. It's like, no, you did that yourselves. So just all so imagine all of that, and it's just like, did you, like, what are you doing? This is a charity space. You're supposed to be fundraising to help causes. You're supposed to be ethically, morally not absolute butts, but here we are. Unsurprisingly American. Like, the part of the issue is like non-profits and that in America, there's a lot of marketing. They get very into that headspace of like push, as opposed to, we're a charity. I mean, they don't even call it a charity, they call it a non-profit. You're trying to make the world a better place. So it would make more logical sense to work with creators who are engaged with what you do and want to repeatedly support you.
Yeah.
Like, for multiple reasons, it makes better sense. Because if someone's engaged, they're going to talk about it more passionately. Their community is probably going to be more in line. Again, they might come back and fundraise and so forth. So, like, part of the consultancy is it's like a couple of different bits. There's workshops, which I'm running occasionally because they will have obviously diminishing returns, just because it's like, hey, what is this? But series of workshops that people can come to that are supposed to be affordable. I've like tiered them like price wise. So if you're like a grassroots charity, it's like under 40 quid.
Yep.
Like, you know, and there's also a cheeky discount if people are early that's like 20% off. So it's even more money off, right? For comparison, a lot of these workshops are asking for 100 quid plus.
Okay.
Like, if you've got a workshop for 30 people and you priced it at what a lot of the competitors are doing and you filled it out, you could probably make about $3,000 from an hour, right? But what are you teaching them? Like, what are you teaching them? Are you teaching them like, oh, hey, look at this. A lot of them are doing this thing of going like, hey, look at the big fundraisers. So look at like Thankmas, like the Jacksepticeye, like big fundraiser, or the Sidemen football games, right? Oh, look at those. Look at how much money they net. You should apply for those. And it's like, but that's all well and good. But if you actually look at the structure of how it works, no one applies. They pick the people.
Yeah.
It's internal. They do what they want. Again, it's engaged. Like, they have a connection with that charity.
Yeah.
You are wasting time, energy, and your own money trying to throw yourselves at these people, when actually what you should be doing is making organic connections with smaller streamers. And it's things like, in terms of the analytics, the stats for fundraising, I think it's 67% of fundraisers are done by smaller streamers.
Wow.
Like, it's a lot of the actual like work in terms of like all year round. It's not the big streamers. It's great the big streamers and the big creators want to be involved. We had an amazing reactionary fundraiser for Palestinian Children's Relief Fund that was $1.5 million in just May. Like, that stuff is amazing, and yes, it should continue, but it shouldn't be the be all and end all because of the nature of just the sheer audience community, like streamer stuff on Twitch, on YouTube, on TikTok, Instagram, you know, any of these. Like, there is a lot of potential to work with a lot more people. So workshops kind of focus on that. It's about like teaching them the bare minimum, like what is Twitch, what is YouTube, what is Tiltify, how do people fundraise, but also how old are streamers? Like, streaming isn't just gaming. So like, is your messaging on your website, hey gamers, do you want to play some games? It's like, no, talk to them like they're adults, for God's sake. Like, you need to uncouple these ideas from your mind a bit. So things like that, about ethical outreach as well, because again, when I said the marketing vibes, there's a lot of like pestering, or a lot of the obsession with like KPIs, so response rates. And I'm fine with having a little one. Like, a couple of bits of other things that I do come with KPIs. It's setting a reasonable one, and it's not losing your head over the number so much that you just overstep in terms of like social stuff. You know? So the workshops are very like, hey, this is the topic, here we go. It's not like super flexible. It's not tailored to a charity. It's as evergreen as I can make it as well. I also do more tailored workshops one-on-one with charities, where they get like quite a lot of notes explaining all of the stuff. So they'll get the sort of the base presentation, but then in addition to that, it'll be like, right, your mission statement is you're a food bank. So what are you going to care about? You're going to care about like food pricing, sustainability of the world, food waste, therefore environment. So your mission statement and these values, you should be looking into these areas of content creation. You should be looking at these dates of the year, perhaps, for your campaigns, because they align with like International Whatever Day, or like, you know, that like there's something in the calendar every year for streamers that actually might vibe quite well with it,
Yeah.
like that sort of thing. So yeah, basic workshops, tailored workshops with their all the notes. Like they get like 10 pages of notes sometimes. It's yeah, it depends on how into it I am, and also how much evidence I need to give them of like
Yeah.
what's happening. And then also I do like one-on-one, like outreach programmy sort of stuff. So that will be a case of me emailing and talking to creators and sourcing creators, but also checking them. So it'll be the due diligence checks as well.
Yes.
So yeah, all of that. So like checking that they fit with the charity. So if it's a mental health charity, obviously someone who's said bad things about mental health, no, thank you.
Yes. They need to fit.
Yeah, exactly. So it's all of that stuff. It's making the organic connections at every single part, and I also want it to be a situation of, and this is where it could screw me, but hey, I want to be a situation of, and this is also why I do all the notes. You have all the information, you have the context, you understand why we've done the thing, so that you can then make an educated decision later
Yes.
about, do you do that campaign again? Do you hire an agency to do it for you? Do you hire me back? Like, I want it to be a case of, do you build an internal team? You know,
Yes.
I don't want it to be the situation which is happening. It happens, and it's still happening to varying degrees, where they hire an agency to do the outreach.
Yep.
The agency doesn't really tell them what they've done. They're just like, here's some people, and bye. And then they feel that they are stuck having to go back to those people again, and they don't really understand why, and or they can't spot the potential red or orange flags of, actually this didn't work, or maybe this is not a thing.
Yeah.
So it's like multifaceted at the moment. I would love to have a couple, like at the moment I've got some like stuff up until November where I'm doing support for a couple of charities on their outreach programs. But I would love to have a couple more in there in varying degrees. Because it is quite nice. It's quite fun to turn up with all my notes and be like, hey, so you're a food bank or you're a women's shelter. Let's talk. So yeah, like it is very young. It's probably about, let's say, 6 months old.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Really young.
but I would like it to grow. I'd like it to be, I don't want to say necessarily the main, I'd like it to be the main source of income, because it takes the edge off of stream community, you know?
Adverts. The universe.
Yes.
Yes.
It that would definitely be like a welcome relief for everybody involved, because it would be a stable bit of income for the first time since I left uni
Yep.
into, you know, as I said, the economic crash. Thanks so much. Yeah, that straight into student debt. Lovely. So yeah, it would be nice to have. It'd also be nice to have, just from a like, I want to work on a couple of programs long term, for charities. If I go and work at one of them full time, then I can't really necessarily work at others.
Yes.
But it is also an option. It just has to be the right. It has to be the right charity. It also has to be the right role, because uh, I am in Bristol. I am not traveling to London every day.
Yep.
The amount of time that would be lost there for charity stuff is daft. Which is why, yeah, this consultancy role where I'm actually technically not attached to anyone is good. But it is also, like, once again, much like content creation, a potential risk, just because it's, you know, it's self-employed, it's all of that sort of stuff. But it's, so far it's going okay. The next wave of workshops, actually at the time of recording, will be going out today. But I haven't done the socials post for them yet, because they're like next month. So I'm giving myself
That
space.
makes sense.
So yeah, like that would be nice to be able to make that, like, continue growing that and make that like a nice big thing. I, as part of it as well, if it does well, it gives me the freedom to do things like creator resources for free,
Yeah.
because I'd love to be able to be like, here's the resort. Like, do you want to know? I'm not going to tell them every single secret that a charity has,
Yeah, of course.
but if you have a basic understanding of, you know, like why due diligence happens, then maybe you'll understand. a bit more about why charities have to do it.
Yes.
You know, they're not going to get every single secret. I'm not going to be like, erase all your stuff so they'll never find it, because no, like that's just
it needs to be a genuine connection to a streamer, but also
yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's like, so for example, a good example of this is in America, medical marijuana, right? You are allowed to smoke that on stream, like medical in your area, fine.
Mm-hmm.
You do have to use the disclosure of like intoxicated drugs, like on the click through, start watching. And it automatically means as a result, you won't be put on somewhere like the front page if you've got any of those flags. It's a great, like the system works, as far as I can tell, the system works quite well. Unfortunately, quite a lot of charities are like, obviously they won't work with people who visibly went into this lovely streamer, like every single thing had ticked the box across the board, like socials, yes. I did know that she like advocated for medical use, did use it medically. Loaded into her stream at the point where she took a massive bong rip. I was like, that's that.
Well,
like it was nice. It was nice meeting you for 2 seconds. Like I love like
oh, we were so close.
yeah, but that's the thing is like that's not always going to work. But hey, it might be that another charity in the UK, in the US, are like perfect.
Yeah, of course. It's
you know,
I mean that's very much a UK US divide thing. Like this is just not the way it would go in the UK, because lots of things I'm not going to say.
No, let's not get into that.
My brain fully. I went through like 40 to 50 different things. Then my brain was just like, just don't.
Yeah,
just don't.
Yeah, exactly. But it's that sort of stuff as well. It's explaining all those like weird little grey areas. So I can't ask them to like chill out on something like that because that's a decision. But stuff like OnlyFans,
yes,
like explaining to them that OnlyFans does it, like for a start, like sex work is work, right?
Yeah.
At the very like at the heart of everything. But then also like you shouldn't be scared off because someone is using this.
Yes.
You know, and it's explaining that to them because a lot of them, because they don't understand it, they're like, oh, you know, we won't go anywhere, we won't engage with it. Same deal with furries. So imagine I'm trying to do a workshop, right? This is the week after the Olympics have started. I'm doing a workshop with a charity, and I'm like, we're going into this as grey areas. I need to explain like AI, crypto, like all these things that don't necessarily affect you, but actually probably do, and you should maybe have a stance.
Yes.
I'm like, I've got to talk to them about OnlyFans and furries. How am I explaining furries to a bunch of people who don't really go on the internet? Shout out to the Olympics and the Olympic Village, who had both furries and then also the Great British team who paid to get there using OnlyFans. Like, thank you. I didn't have to do it. I literally got to that bit, and someone in the conversation went, "Oh, like in the Olympic Village." I just went, "Yes, yes." If you've had a good input, like if you've actually experienced something, brilliant. It's just, but it's such a weird one because we with the rise of things like VTubers as well, it's explaining what those are, and it's explaining that it is a persona or fursona, and also they're a really engaged community. Like in terms of charity, they do a lot of good work. So
if you get the furries on board, you're doing all right.
Yeah, but imagine trying to explain that to a charity that's not even
not a sentence that
I
would say in my day-to-day life, because thankfully nobody I know in real life is that online.
Yeah, so it's a weird one sometimes, but again, it's fun, and I quite like. I'm not tearing apart everything that they know and love and they've built, but you know, I do wander onto their website sometimes. I'm like, how easy is it for me to get to like any streaming stuff? How easy is it for me to get to Tiltify, to your website, to back? Like, where are your socials? All of that.
That's really cool. I think this has been an undercurrent with our conversation, so I think this is as good a place to jump into as any. Let's talk ADHD.
Yep, I thought that was coming.
I'm certain the people watching this will be like, oh, this has been a lot of answers to questions that haven't been asked.
I did mention echolalia earlier, so you know that was
yes, but I'm in a similar boat to you. I found out I had ADHD as an adult.
Which flavor?
All of them.
Oh, combined.
Yeah, I have all of the
Oh,
flavors.
I've got inattentive, but I sometimes call it intermittent accidentally.
No, I know a few of my friends who have ADHD describe me as being like the poster boy for for it, just for ADHD, basically.
Oh,
So,
congrats.
thank you. It makes it really easy to talk to my kids because my kids will be like, blah 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 blah, this other separate thing,
Oh
and I'm like,
yeah.
yeah, no, I follow. And my wife's like, what are you talking about? And I'm
Oh,
like,
and it's
no, no,
genetic.
just it
So
is. I know, poor kids. I know from me they're likely to get neurodivergency and hypermobility, and I'm a bit like, I'm real sorry about that. But I love you. So yes. Yeah. So, what was the process like in you discovering that you had ADHD?
Oh, okay. So, uh, okay. Let's try and. So okay, very quickly, childhood, etc. Always thought something was a bit off,
Mhm.
but girls don't get ADHD, right? Back then, like it wasn't a diagnosis
It's
that
true.
girls had. And also it was changed. So, like the one I've got, you may also know as ADD, um, attention deficit disorder, but they merged them because actually, technically, it's the same thing. It's just a bit of a just how it manifests. Um,
It's a different skin if you're playing Overwatch or
yes,
something.
yeah. Underneath, it's still like something weird going on with the dopamine levels in your brain.
Yeah.
Either you don't make enough, or you don't use it efficiently.
Yeah.
Either way, terrible. I thanks, brain. So always thought something was a bit off, but never like had a real label for it. I was like, it's not autism. So it's just like, just a bit quirky. I also, for secondary school, went to an all-girls school and was basically the only person who was into nerdy stuff.
Right.
So that didn't help with like,
The
is it
other
this
feeling.
or is
Yeah.
it yeah. Um, Flash forward to the pandemic. And it's at this point, I actually weirdly, it was to do with weather migraines that made me first think about it. Because I get a lot of like, not all the time, but I get pressure headaches if the
Mhm.
weather swaps, and Bristol's quite changeable because of where it is.
Yep.
Um, and what happens when I have migraines is the ADHD symptoms manifest harder.
Right.
So I was like, why, when I have a migraine, I don't necessarily get the aura, like the visual aura, I might get a headache. But why do I feel like I'm basically like punch drunk all the time?
Yep.
Like really like mind fog what's happening. Um, and also sort of noticed it in general day-to-day life a little bit. Because whilst I was already working from home,
Mm.
it was more. It was more, right? Because we were all in lockdown.
Yep.
So then discovered that they changed the DSM, which is the
Mm.
Diagnostic Statistics Manual, the one that the US uses it, the UK has a different one. And I'd done an A level in psychology at one point. I wanted to be a criminal profiler, but then was like, that's quite a spicy and error-filled job if you get it very wrong. Something could go horribly wrong. Maybe we'll just have that as a hobby. Maybe we'll just gently watch, Criminal Minds and play some murder mystery games, and that can feed that without me
Let's just
endangering.
play Among Us, and
Yeah,
that'll do.
without endangering someone's life. Like
Yeah.
it's a bit too high decision making for me. No, thank you. But I consistently had an interest in not psychiatry, psychology,
Mm.
criminology, why people's brains tick.
Yes.
It's like, oh, funny that. I also at university did my my master's thesis. And this is part of the thing. It was like I was doing university. I got a master's,
Mhm.
nothing could clearly be wrong with her. I did that on representations of autism in literature.
Oh yeah.
And it's like the call was in the house next door. Like, hello? So
Oh,
close.
I'm ringing me. How strange.
Hello. Hello, neurodivergency. So like that stuff, processing that, but also, yeah, being like, what the heck is going on? By sheer chance, I knew 2 or 3 people who were in a similar position to me, who were in their 30s,
Mm.
And it just, as part of that, unfortunately, and this is like biologically, when you get into your mid-30s, you start to enter something that's called perimenopause, which is the 10 to 15 years lead up to the menopause, where things start to go wonky. And it's like, and then also the menopause is like 5 to 10 years sometimes as well. It's
Yep.
just like, brilliant, lovely. So I was like, well, something's obviously triggering this to make it worse. But also, like, everyone in our 30s were having a bad time. And then they were like, oh, I got diagnosed with ADHD. And I'm like, what? But the DSM went off to the DSM, had a look, and was like, oh, this has all changed. This kind of resonates with me a lot more. And also, not only did I have friends who were being diagnosed, but I had friends who had been diagnosed for some time.
Yeah.
Who were very much like, yeah, I can see it. I was like, oh.
The death knell, truly, for our neurotypicalness is friends who've already been diagnosed going, didn't you know?
Including some who've been like that, like who've been diagnosed as kids as well.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, bums, okay.
We're on the same wavelength all the time. Obviously, you're neurodivergent.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
How
yeah,
are we having 4 conversations at once? You know, like
now that you've said it out loud,
yeah,
I can see it.
yeah. Like I will have there's someone I have conversations with. We have text conversations and Discord conversations going on at the same time.
You've got to keep the topic subject because otherwise you're going to forget. I get it.
Yeah, exactly. So like all of that stuff, and then talking more and more with people who were diagnosed, whether they were medicated or not, and it was just like, no, this does feel like it fits. So then investigated Psychiatry UK, and did something called Right to Choose, which you can only do in England, which is a shame because, good grief, we could do with it elsewhere. But the gist is the NHS offsets you to a private place who will do all the diagnosis, get the meds correct for you, and then you get chucked back in. So signed up for that, got referred by my GP, which actually was fine. I was a bit worried because he'd never met me, like literally signed up for the GP when I moved to this house. I've never seen him. Had a phone conversation where I basically rambled out for 10 minutes, and then he was like, so I'll write the referral later. I was like, okay, thank you.
I thought you were enjoying my duck facts. Were you not enjoying the duck facts?
He opened the call with what seems to be the problem, and I was like, have you read the form? He's like, yes. I'm like, well. So yeah, that sort of went over to Psychiatry UK. Did have to wait a bit. I don't know what the queues are like now. Like, I think I sort of just snuck in before we had a sudden, a bigger wave of people coming in because they all got the memo that I'd somehow got a little bit early, that things had changed diagnostically. And so did all that, filled out the absurd amount of questionnaires that they make you do, where you have to
such a terrible process. Like, they give you so many things, and it's like,
so anti-ADHD.
I'm certain I have ADHD, and you're making me do so much paperwork.
Yeah. And it also, you have to like show your workings is something I've never been good at school, right? Like, never. I have to show you the evidence from childhood that I did this.
I remember.
Like, I'm 36. Like, they're like, oh yeah, let's talk to your parents about it. I'm like, I haven't lived with them since I was like 18. How are they gonna? Also, they don't think it's real. Like, back in my day, that sort of thing, I'm sure I would have been diagnosed with it. And I'm like, you collect, Dad, you collect toy trains and make them. Bless your heart. That's not your flavor.
My mother described forgetfulness as a familial trait, and the beams I shot through her head as she said it. After like a few weeks, I think a few months before that, I was like, so I have this. And she's like, well, no, that doesn't sound right. And I'm like, no, I think it's whatever. And just fully like threw in the towel and gave up. And then a few months later, she was like, well, forgetfulness is a family trait. And it's just like, is it
my mum's side of the family all get in a flap. I'm like, that's just an ADHD meltdown. That's what's happening there. I think my mum's side of the family is where that's come from, because they, like, all of us have bad sleeping issues, like collectively very similar behavioral traits when it comes to like bad sleeping, getting in a flap, getting distracted. Like, I've watched my mum spend 5 hours doing every other thing under the sun except paint her toenails for something she's going out to. Like, she's had shoes out of shoe boxes. She's had bags out of cupboards.
Yep.
And this was waiting to have the diagnosis, but having been referred. I went back to stay with them a night because there was a family thing going on. And I was just looking at it and I was like, I'm seeing a lot of things here, mother. And then, but yeah, my dad collects toy trains in his garage. So
I love that for him.
we do. I think there may be a bit of autism in there because there's something, but it's not ADHD.
Neurodivergency attracts neurodivergency, and it's the reason why I think if you're someone who's recently been diagnosed, you're like, it's weird. I feel like I'm overdoing because everyone I know, I feel like everyone I get on with is also neurodivergent, and it's like, well, the thing is, yes, not because everyone is, because everyone isn't, obviously, but if you've recently been diagnosed, the chances are that throughout your life you've clung to the people you resonate with, and the people you resonate with are usually your flavor of neurodivergent or some similar like adjacent flavor.
Because there's also things like we struggle with object permanence, and that also applies to people. Which, if you're someone who's in the know, and this is why you could like have a friend you don't talk to them for 6 months, you see them again, it's like nothing's changed.
Yep.
Brilliant, right?
Wonderful. Best friends.
However, with the wrong person, that's you've ghosted me for 6 months. Or it's that sort of thing of like, people don't necessarily understand that part of it, where it's like out of sight, out of mind. It's not that I am ignoring you. It's not that I have intentionally forgotten you. It's just you are not there. Hello.
I have work, and that's the thing that I'm looking at, and that's as far as my brain
and
goes.
I'm struggling to keep that focused. So yeah, like all of that went through, filled all the forms out, which was an experience, but we got there. Had the call with the person who was like, I could do half an hour earlier if you want. And I was just like, change, help. I've been ready for 2 hours, so short, but it's like the paranoia of missing it, as well.
I was going to go to the toilet half an hour before it started, just in case. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, had the call with her. Bless her, she did go. She's like, so tell me how this started with no further instructions, right? What would you read that as?
A woman.
You would read that as when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Right? No, she's like, no. Tell me how the process started of you getting into the applying, filling this out. I'm like, what?
That's a different question.
Ma'am, what? So what I did have to say to her, like, I said, you need to give me more pointed questions. If you want me to answer stuff, you need to direct me. Like, I am not here to play that part. Today is fully unmasked. We're not doing any of that nonsense for you. Thank you. Like, all the stims are happening. Like, this, of all the times to like not mask, this would be it. So we did get through it. She was like, no, I think it's inattentive. We'll put you on some meds. We'll do the titration. So titration being when they try and work out the dosage for you, and then you do a year, and then you have another chat. So was put on something that is no longer available due to the national shortage.
Not ideal.
Not ideal. No. So like, I had a really good run of like maybe 4 or 5 months. Where it was like, it was partly because Psychiatry UK was still managing it, but then also because there was still stock of that. And then we hit a snag, which is, the national shortage. And the national shortage, the reason it's so bad is because we are 2 years late on our ADHD med supplies in the country. That's why we're so screwed.
I'm unmedicated.
Are you?
Yes, by choice. I am a freelancer with 2 kids. Like, this is fine.
Yeah. This is the thing is, if that works for you, brilliant.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's just like, no, I'm in a groove. I don't know that it's healthy, but it works. So
yeah. Whereas it's like, for me, because a lot of it manifests as like mind fog, forgetfulness, like the meds basically help tie that in together a lot more. the problem with there being a national shortage is I've had 3 different types of med in the last maybe month, and not sure if we're getting any more. So it's a bit of a like, and they all have different behaviors. Some load like 50-50, so they'll start stronger, some take more time throughout the day. So like I've gone from tablets to capsules, because capsules there was more stock for, and that, instead of being a little bit, it holds a bit back for later in the day, normally the tablets, so they're a bit better for longer days. These don't do that.
Right.
So on the plus side, I'm tired at night and I do sleep.
That's good.
But I also like basically run out earlier in terms of like my brain is done sooner.
Yeah.
But I also don't think I'm at the right dosage, which we kind of like, that's why you do a year, you see where you're at, and so forth. And I think it's hard because obviously also they've changed, it's the 50-50 or the 25-75. So it's like, if I'm doing the 50-50 or the 25-75, those will surely have to be different doses because of that number that's starting with. I still think 50-50, I need to probably go up a tiny bit. But I don't get my like review thing until January.
Right.
I'm not sure who's doing it, whether it's going back to Psychiatry UK or whether the NHS is doing it.
Right.
The Bristol-based healthcare system is dire. It takes like weeks to get anything done. And you also can't ask for repeat prescriptions of ADHD meds because they're a controlled substance. Bearing in mind other parts of the country will let you automatically do all of that. So it's nonsense. So I'm like, am I gonna be waiting like 2 months for this like review system thing? And then when I go, hey, I actually need a higher one, what are we gonna be doing? Also the issue of like, how is your experience with meds? I'd love to tell you, but you've not consistently given me any.
I don't know.
You know?
I don't know. It was all right, and then it wasn't, now it isn't.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So
and
like for me as well, it's not just things like the mind fog, like because like I don't know how badly you get it, but I get like executive dysfunction, which is the one which like I don't want to do a task.
I only get that when I'm trying to relax.
See, I get it all the time,
which is bad.
But relaxing, genuinely did not know what the concept of relaxing was until the medication.
I can't. The only way I relax is by playing co-op games with friends or D&D.
It's like you've got to have multiple things going on, and then you'll relax.
I need it to be a social experience that forces me into that like relaxation. Otherwise, I genuinely sat here the other night talking to friends on Skype, going through my Steam library, uninstalling and reinstalling different games, and not actually playing anything. Which is like classic ADHD, but super unhelpful. When I was like, no, I need to relax.
So, like for me, relaxing, there has to be. Like, and it's not relaxing, but it has to be distraction. It has to be distraction on top of distraction. So it has to be a physical thing that I'm doing, an audible thing that I'm doing. So like, for example, Switch or Steam Deck in front of the TV.
Yeah, classic.
You know, like, and what I'm playing on the Steam Deck or the Switch could be a turn-based thing. It could be Elden Ring, but I have to be a bit careful with Elden Ring because can't pause it. I'm not very good at it. There's a balance of like frustration where it's like, no, turn that off. But like that is how I relax. It's not relaxing. It's giving the brain, the toddler part of my brain that's like, hello.
You let it loose.
It's just shoving them in the ball pit and just going, go away for a bit.
Yeah, it's taking the leash off of this thing that you've
it's
been
not
in a spot.
Yeah, it's not relaxing.
Yeah, I don't come away like, no. It's more like the demon has been fed.
Exactly, right? Exactly. And when I first started taking the meds, I started doing, I haven't done it for bloody ages because everything's like so busy. But also like I've been too tired because of all the med changes. But I started doing yoga. Right. And it's like, I used to do yoga because it was that like noughties fad. Suddenly everyone started doing yoga. So I got dragged along to my mum's yoga class. I'm pretty sure there was like a yoga class in school once, like that sort of thing, where they're like, we're going to teach the kids new things. So like got a couple of like yoga things. I was like, I'm going to try and do yoga every morning to just like stretch and everything. And it's like that with all the breathing stuff. None of that made a difference before meds, but it was like when I was doing it medicated, so I'd have the meds and then I'd go and do it. So I kind of come up on the meds during yoga. And so by the end of it, you're doing the bit where you lie down, you do breathing, and I'm like, actually, this is quite nice. I'm not just lying here going, can we get up now? Can we go now? Can we go? When can we go? So it's stuff like executive dysfunction. It helps with those because it allows me to just sort of go to my brain, oh, hey, like, no, we do need to do this.
Yeah.
And that part of my brain that basically is screaming, going, I cannot do it. Yeah. It's not a case of I don't want to do it. It's quite hard to explain to people who don't have this. And also because, again, like masking it for so long, getting quite a lot of like high achievey exam stuff, it can be hard for people to understand that I'm just like, I really don't want to do this. I hate this. I don't want to do this. And like, if you make me do it, I will hate you, and I will also hate whatever I'm doing.
Yes.
And just not want to do it. So it deals with that stuff a lot more, but it also deals with the emotional regulation,
which is good.
Which is
tough.
And that's one of my. Until medicated, I did not realize how bad that was. Like it's a very weird thing to try and explain to people. The guy, when we did the end of titration, like shoe back into the NHS, is like, do you feel, because they have to ask you these for the meds, they're like, do you feel that you're anxious or depressed? And I was like, you know what? Until I had meds, I would have said to you before any of this, no, I'm not an anxious person, not a depressed person. But now, having had meds, I again would not say that we would the levels of like clinical anxiety or depression, but absolutely anxious, like all the time, about everything, because your brain will automatically go, right, here's every single scenario that could happen.
Yeah, of course.
And it doesn't lead with the good stuff. They will always lead with the bad.
Yes.
Because like we don't know exactly where ADHD comes from,
yeah.
But there are various anthropological theories that maybe we were the ones who kept up at night looking for things in the dark that might
make sense from an
us.
evolutionary standpoint.
Yeah, because you're like, what's that? But also, we wake up at silly times of the night.
Sleep. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, like we don't know how it's happened. We do know that it's been here for bloody ages. We do know that it's probably an evolutionary trait or something.
Yeah.
Because there's other stuff. They're slowly doing studies. We've had a couple of long form studies, like 10-year ones, where they're kids with medication that are finally being done, finally finishing.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating about some of those is like it suggests that the ADHD brain runs 4 times faster than neurotypical.
Right.
It's like, once you know that, you're like, no wonder we're tired all the bloody time. And also can't sleep.
Yeah.
Like the RAM in the computer is leaking just constantly. Like, hello. But then autism potentially, I think it's 40 to 60% faster.
Okay.
Again, so it's like, well, no, like if you get overstimulated by noise and stuff, again, it starts to make sense, because you're like, well, yeah, because you're taking more in.
Yeah.
But another interesting thing, we've had the first like kids to adults study finally close in recent years. And there's some weird, like really weird evidence, and it doesn't work for every single person, but a small number of kids, if they're treated at the right time with the meds that work for them, the part of their brain that does all the dopamine stuff adapts and becomes more neurotypical.
Right.
Therefore, the symptoms of ADHD are lessened, which I think like can explain a lot about this. Like, oh yeah, they had ADHD as a kid and they grew up and it was fine. It's like, because in some people that's clearly happening. Like when they're given the appropriate drugs at the right time to help their brain adapt. And but that does not necessarily mean that it is a fault or anything. No. Like it's just, in some people that has worked, and that explains why some people do not need drugs in later life.
Yeah. Brains are weird.
They are weird, but they're fascinating. This is why this is why I was quite into criminal psychology for a bit. Or just psychology in general. But it is fascinating. And that's also because I said about the migraines, and that started me investigating migraines, epilepsy, ADHD. Like the brain does sort of quite similar things in some cases, especially epilepsy and migraines. Like it fires in the same way. So I fell down a magical hole of just going like, tell me more. What is all this stuff?
I have learned everything there is to know.
Yeah, just emerge from the room and be like, I have read all the studies.
Now I'm going to learn how to tech deck.
Yeah, but it's fascinating, and a part of me does wish that I'd known when I was younger. But like, what can you do about that?
Nothing. It
No,
wasn't one of those things where you got the diagnosis and then retroactively you were like, oh, that makes sense.
yeah,
To just everything.
yeah. Like, there's a couple of things like back at, like when you're a kid, a couple of moments where you're like, maybe if that had been a thing, that understanding might have been better from my side. But then I also think back to like primary school, and the only other kid that I think it might have been, I suspect, hyperactive ADHD, was a black kid, and it was blamed on his mother being single. Yeah, imagine picking that up at the age of like 5 or 6, and he got asked to leave the school. And I'm just like, in hindsight, I'm like, no, that kid just had ADHD. Like, it just needed a different space.
It's nuts.
It is, isn't it? So yeah, I'm like, I don't think that actually would have made that much difference.
It's good to talk about these things because awareness of these things means that the kids who might somehow stumble into any of these conversations or these TikToks or whatever else might find a modicum of understanding and comfort with the people that have it. And I think that's why I always talk about it.
Yeah, but that's why, like, for me, TikTok is also important. Yes, do not just use TikTok for diagnosis. No. Although there are some people on there who do post things like the studies.
Yeah.
But we do not have, partially because of it being diagnostic criteria, but also because misunderstood, under investigated for many, many years. We do not have like the subjectivity side. We don't have the personal stuff. So like, ask someone with autism or someone with ADHD about socks, right? Everyone's got an opinion on socks. Like, you hate them.
I hate them so much. I can't
Ankle
wear
socks, ankle socks, full socks. Like,
I wear socks when I'm wearing shoes. Otherwise, I don't wear socks.
Barefoot. I used to run around the Rockery
barefoot. Still, now it's just better.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Right. And it's like all of that stuff. That's not going to be on your like pick box thing.
No,
but
it should be.
Or it's like, tell me about the list the number of hobbies that you have started and stopped. Like, that's not a question on there. It's just like, have you ever not completed a project or something like that? And it's just like, no, scrap all of that question. List the number of hobbies where you have put money in.
How much equipment at home do you have for a hobby that you stopped doing?
Yeah, exactly.
That should be it. Right. Yeah. Is there anything that you want to plug before we call this to a close?
I guess charity consultancy. Although if you work for a charity, a charity, any of that sort of stuff, and you would like some maybe support with the content creator space or just a chat, I'm not going to bill you up front. You can go to lamadia.com, which also has all the content creation stuff as well. Perfect. Yeah, that's LOMADIAH.com. It's a nightmare having a universal name, it never works. You can have a look there. That will also have all my socials. You can contact me. I would love to work with more charities, make the space nicer. But also, if you like a bit of content, you like a bit of gaming variety stuff, you can also find that there or over on Twitch. We are currently playing Dragon Age Inquisition for the first time, which chat have been rabid for, shall we say, for a very long time.
Very long while, I'm sure.
Yes. At just various bits and bobs. Like, we play horror, action adventure, puzzle games. Like, the only things I don't really play are like hardcore political games. Mostly because I just find them boring. If it's politics with a twist, Fallout, fine. Same deal with first person shooters. Like, not that into Call of Duty. Yes, Fallout.
Yeah, it's Fallout.
That sort of thing. So like, we play loads of stuff. So yeah, come over, say hi. Yeah, so that's basically me, is content creation and charity stuff.
Wonderful. Now the sign off was caused by my first guest, and what we do is we just wave at the camera awkwardly. It's great. And then I cut at some
Is that
point.
any different to?
I don't think that's how I end anything else, to be fair. So yeah.
I think I just sort of like, bye everybody,
Bye.
and then just
Yeah,
like
that's literally
desperately
it.
try and like mute the stream and then leave.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if you would join me in a wave,
Oh,
and then I'll cut out some of it at some point. So
sweet.
yeah. Bye.
Bye.